Translate this, and I'll give you my entire year's salary. Ethan Cole's laughter echoed across the glass walls of Cole Enterprises. What he didn't expect was that the maid standing quietly behind him would actually do it. The headquarters of Cole Enterprises glittered under the morning sun. The 54th floor was pure power, marble floors, glass partitions, and a breathtaking view of Manhattan. Every step inside that office reeked of money, ambition, and arrogance, especially when Ethan Cole, the self-made tech billionaire, walked in. Employees froze when he entered. His reputation for being both brilliant and brutal made him the man no one wanted to cross. But that day, Ethan was in an unusually playful mood. A team of foreign investors from Japan had just arrived. The boardroom was filled with suits, coffee, and tension. The translators were running late. Ethan, impatient as always, snapped his fingers. "Anyone here understand Japanese?" Silence. The executives glanced at one another. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "Typical. Millions in payroll, and not one of you can translate a simple sentence." He turned, noticing Amara, the young maid, polishing the conference table's edge. Her posture was graceful, her face calm, the kind of presence that didn't demand attention but somehow held it. Ethan smirked. "You there," he said, gesturing casually with his pen. "You look smarter than most of them. Want to try?" The room went still. Amara looked up, startled. "Sir?" "Translate this," Ethan said, switching to rapid Japanese he'd picked up from years of international business trips. The words were sharp, complex, an inside joke about people pretending to know more than they do. The investors laughed politely, not realizing the arrogance behind his tone. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Tell you what," he said, eyes glinting. "Translate that correctly, and my annual salary is yours." The executives laughed nervously. It was meant to be harmless, a joke, a public flex. Amara blinked, her fingers tightening on the cleaning cloth. Every instinct told her to stay silent, to let it pass. But something about the sneer in his voice, the way the room looked at her, half amused, half dismissive, lit a fire deep inside her. "Would you like me to say it in English or Japanese, sir?" she said softly. The laughter died. Ethan tilted his head. "Wait, what?" Amara repeated in flawless Japanese. "Only a fool mistakes arrogance for intelligence." The investors' eyes widened. They understood immediately. A few chuckled awkwardly. One of them, Mr. Tanaka, actually clapped. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You understood that?" "Yes, sir," she said calmly. "You used a mix of casual Kansai dialect and business honorifics. Very interesting choice." The room froze. Even the air-conditioning hum felt louder. The once playful arrogance on Ethan's face flickered into disbelief. For the first time in years, someone had stunned him into silence. And it wasn't a billionaire, it wasn't a rival CEO. It was his maid. The investors started whispering among themselves, impressed. Amara quietly gathered her cleaning supplies, her cheeks flushed but her eyes steady. "If that will be all, sir, I'll continue my work." But before she could step away, Ethan spoke again, softer now. "Wait." His tone wasn't mocking anymore. It was curious. "Where did you learn that?" Amara hesitated. "At the University of Tokyo," she said, her voice almost apologetic. "I studied linguistics before coming here." The room erupted in murmurs. Even the usually stoic Mr. Tanaka leaned forward. "Impressive," he said. "You speak Japanese beautifully." Ethan's fingers tightened around his pen. His trademark smirk had vanished. For a brief moment he looked human. As Amara stepped out of the boardroom, whispers followed her. The investors were smiling now, amused, entertained, even impressed by the unexpected turn of events. And Ethan Cole, the man who thought he had all the answers, sat silently in his chair, staring at the spotless table that suddenly felt like a mirror. Outside, Amara took a deep breath. Her heart raced, but her soul felt light. For the first time in months, she hadn't just been invisible, she had been seen. What neither of them knew was that this single moment, born from arrogance, courage, and truth, would change both of their lives forever. "Find that maid," Ethan ordered coldly. "I want to know everything about her." What he didn't expect was that the truth about Amara Johnson would make him question everything he ever believed about success. The morning after the boardroom incident, the 54th floor of Cole Enterprises was buzzing like never before. The video clip of Amara translating Ethan's arrogant joke had quietly made its rounds among the employees. Someone from the tech department had recorded it on their phone. By lunch, whispers filled every hallway. The maid who spoke perfect Japanese, the boss's face when she translated, "Who is she?" But no one dared mention it to Ethan Cole. Not after the way he stormed into his office that morning. He'd barely spoken a word during the staff briefing. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by a deep frown. His assistant, Claire, noticed the tension immediately. "Sir, would you like me to schedule your meeting with—" "Find out everything about her," he interrupted, not even looking up from his computer screen. "About who?" "The maid. The one from yesterday." His tone was sharp, controlled. "Name, background, everything. I want it on my desk in an hour." Claire blinked. "Yes, sir." Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring out at the city skyline. He couldn't stop replaying the moment in his head. Her voice, calm but firm, her pronunciation flawless, her composure under pressure. It wasn't just intelligence, it was grace. He'd met world-class interpreters, linguists and negotiators, but none had ever made him feel that small. An hour later, Claire returned with a printed file. "Amara Johnson," she said softly, placing it on his desk. 25 years old, works part-time with the maintenance company that handles cleaning for the top floors. Been here for 4 months. Ethan opened the file. His eyes scanned the details and froze. B.H. bachelor's degree in linguistics. University of Tokyo, fluent in Japanese, French, Spanish and Arabic, previous internship. UN translation program unverified due to funding cut. He frowned. "This can't be right." "That's what I thought too," Claire said. "But I double-checked. She really studied in Japan. Apparently, her mother worked as a housekeeper there for a diplomat. Amara was on scholarship." Ethan stared at the page, his mind racing. "So why is she cleaning offices?" Claire hesitated. "According to HR records, she applied for a front desk internship last year but never got a call back. Wrong name got shortlisted." He sat back, speechless. For a man who prided himself on running a merit-based company, that revelation hit hard. Somewhere along the line, talent like hers had slipped through the cracks, and he'd been too blind to notice. That afternoon, Ethan sent an email himself. Not through HR, not through assistance. To Amara Johnson, subject, opportunity for translation assistance message, "Ms. Johnson, please report to the executive conference room at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bring your ID and any language certifications you may have. E. Cole." When Amara read the email, she almost dropped her phone. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it. "Is this a joke?" she whispered to herself. The next morning she arrived early, dressed neatly in a simple white blouse and black slacks. Her hands trembled slightly as she waited outside the conference room. Inside, Ethan was already seated. When she entered, he looked up, his expression unreadable. "Good morning, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Good morning, Miss Johnson," he replied. "Please, sit." She hesitated. The last time she stood in that room, she'd been holding a mop. Now she was being asked to sit at the CEO's table. Ethan folded his hands. "I reviewed your file. Why didn't you apply for a position that matched your skills?" "I did, sir," she said quietly, "but I never got a response. I needed work, so I took what was available." He nodded slowly, guilt flickering across his face. "You're fluent in 4 languages?" "Yes, sir." "Impressive," he said, leaning forward. "I'd like you to assist in translating documents for our upcoming Asian market expansion. It's a temporary position for now, but if you do well, we can discuss more." Amara blinked in disbelief. "Are you serious?" Ethan allowed a faint smile. "Completely. Though I should warn you, I don't hand out my salary easily." Her lips curved into a small, amused smile. "I'm not here for your salary, Mr. Cole. I just want a chance to prove myself." The words hit him harder than she realized. For a man who'd always measured worth in numbers, hearing genuine ambition, humble yet powerful, stirred something unexpected. As she left his office, Claire stepped in with a grin. "You're really giving her a chance?" Ethan exhaled, his eyes still fixed on the door Amara had walked through. "No," he said quietly. "She's giving me a chance." That night, as Ethan reviewed Amara's translated drafts, he caught himself smiling, something he hadn't done in a long time. And for the first time in his career, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, real intelligence wasn't found in glass towers, but in the courage of someone who refused to stay invisible. When Amara walked into the boardroom wearing a translator's badge, the executives whispered and smirked until she opened her mouth. 10 minutes later, those same men were fighting to keep their jobs. The next morning, Cole Enterprises buzzed with anticipation. Ethan Cole, known for his ruthless precision and impossible standards, had called an emergency board meeting. But this time, It wasn't just about numbers, mergers, or quarterly losses. It was about a woman, the maid who had stunned him into silence. Amara Johnson, dressed in a navy blue blouse and grey trousers, stood quietly near the corner of the executive boardroom. Her translator's ID badge gleamed under the bright lights. She looked composed even though her heart raced so fast it echoed in her ears. Across the room, Ethan's senior executives exchanged uneasy glances. They'd all seen the viral clip. Some found it amusing, others were embarrassed. No one wanted to admit that they'd laughed too. Ethan walked in, crisp suit, no nonsense. "Good morning," he said flatly. His eyes swept the room, landing briefly on Amara, a hint of acknowledgement, almost respect, flickering in his expression. "Today," he began, "we're finalizing negotiations with our Japanese partners for the Tokyo expansion. Mr. Tanaka's team will join us shortly via video." He paused. "Ms. Johnson will be our lead interpreter." Murmurs rippled through the room. "Sir, with all due respect," one senior manager, Douglas, spoke up. "She's a temporary staff member. Surely we should—" Ethan cut him off. "She's also the only one here fluent enough to translate a deal worth 8 figures. So, unless you'd like to learn Japanese in the next 5 minutes, sit down." The silence that followed was deafening. Minutes later, the screen flickered to life. Mr. Tanaka and his delegation appeared, bowing respectfully. Amara stood and returned the greeting in perfect Japanese, her tone humble yet professional. The executives exchanged surprised looks. Her accent was flawless. As the meeting progressed, Amara translated effortlessly, switching between English and Japanese without hesitation. But when Tanaka's CFO began discussing contract terms, a subtle shift occurred. Hidden clauses, misleading phrasing, small details that most translators might miss, were buried in the dialogue. Ethan watched as Amara's brows furrowed slightly. She glanced at him. "Sir," she said softly in English, "they're inserting a liability clause that transfers risk to our end." The room tensed. Ethan's expression hardened. "Translate that back to them, politely." She nodded, then spoke in calm, precise Japanese, explaining that Cole Enterprises would not accept terms that compromised mutual responsibility. Her delivery was respectful, yet firm, the kind of authority that only confidence and deep understanding could carry. Tanaka's team exchanged looks. Within moments, their tone shifted. The CFO smiled nervously and agreed to remove the clause. Ethan couldn't believe what he was seeing. The same maid he'd mocked days ago had just saved his company millions, not by accident, but with absolute mastery. The meeting continued for another hour. When it finally ended, the Japanese team thanked Amara personally. Tanaka even bowed lower than usual, a gesture of rare respect. As soon as the video call disconnected, the boardroom erupted in quiet disbelief. Douglas, the same executive who doubted her, muttered, "How did she catch that? Our legal team didn't even notice." Ethan turned sharply. "That's because she was listening, not assuming." He walked over to Amara. "Miss Johnson," he said, his voice softer than usual, "you just prevented a major financial trap. How did you know?" Amara hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I used to translate trade documents in Tokyo for small businesses, sir. They often faced hidden clauses like that. You learn to read between the lines." He nodded slowly, visibly impressed. "You just saved us from a disaster. I owe you more than a thank you." "I'm just doing my job, sir," she replied quietly. "The job I've always wanted." For a long moment he said nothing, just looked at her with something new in his eyes, humility. Later that day, Ethan called Claire into his office. "I want her promoted," he said firmly. "Effective immediately, salary adjustment, benefits, everything." Claire's eyebrows shot up. "Promoted to what position?" "Junior cultural liaison," he said. "And tell HR to set up her workstation next to the legal and translation teams." Claire smiled. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Meanwhile, down in the break room, Amara sat alone, sipping her tea. She couldn't stop smiling, not out of pride, but relief. For once she was being valued for what she could do, not where she came from. But as the sun dipped behind the skyscrapers, she didn't realize that the moment she'd been waiting for her whole life, recognition, respect, purpose, was also the beginning of something far greater. Because the next morning, an email would arrive that would not only test her loyalty, but reveal a truth about Ethan Cole's past that no one in the company saw coming. "You remind me of someone," Ethan said quietly, his eyes distant. What Amara didn't know was that the woman who once saved his life shared her last name. The next morning, Amara Johnson walked into the gleaming glass tower of Cole Enterprises like a completely different person. Her uniform was gone. In its place, a professional blouse, neatly pressed slacks, and a new ID badge that read Cultural Liaison. The elevator ride to the 54th floor felt unreal. She had spent months mopping these hallways. Now executives greeted her with respectful nods. Some were embarrassed, others genuinely admired her. But what she didn't know was that behind the closed doors of the CEO's office, Ethan Cole was sitting in silence, staring at an email that made his chest tighten in a way no financial report ever had. It was from Human Resources, titled Employee Verification. Amara L. Johnson. Attached was her full file. Ethan scrolled past her qualifications, her languages, her achievements, and then stopped. Mother's name, Lillian Johnson. His hand froze. That name, that exact name. He whispered it under his breath. Lillian. He hadn't heard it in years. Suddenly, memories rushed back. The dusty streets of Atlanta, long before he became a millionaire. A time when he was a struggling college dropout with nothing but a duffel bag and a dream. He'd worked nights at a grocery store. There was a kind older woman who cleaned the aisles late at night, always smiling, always telling him, "You're not better than anyone, Ethan, but you can be good to everyone." Her name had been Lillian Johnson, the woman who used to share her sandwiches with him when he couldn't afford dinner, the woman who told him that humility was the only language everyone understood. And now, decades later, a young woman with her same last name, same calm eyes, same quiet dignity, had walked into his life and humbled him in front of the entire boardroom. He leaned back in his chair, stunned. Could it be her daughter? A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Amara stepped inside, holding a folder of finalized translations. "Sir, I just wanted to thank you again for giving me this chance." Ethan looked at her closely. "Tell me something, Amara," he said softly. "Your mother's name, was it Lillian?" She froze, surprised. "Yes, sir. You knew her?" He smiled faintly, but his eyes glistened. "More than you'd think. Years ago, when I had nothing, no money, no job, no confidence, your mother was the janitor at the store where I worked nights. She used to scold me for skipping meals and staying late. She said, 'One day, you'll have everything. Don't forget what it's like to have nothing.'" Amara's eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. "You're talking about my mom?" "She passed that wisdom to you," he said. "You walk just like her, quietly but with purpose. And when you corrected me in front of those investors..." He chuckled softly. "For a moment, I thought she'd come back to remind me who I really was." Amara's throat tightened. She always spoke about a young man named Ethan who used to dream big. She said she hoped you made it. Ethan swallowed hard. "I did, but somewhere along the way I forgot the lessons she taught me. Until you reminded me." For a moment, silence filled the room, not awkward, but heavy with meaning. 2 generations, connected by one act of kindness long ago. Ethan stood, walked to his desk, and pulled out a check. "I don't make jokes twice, Miss Johnson," he said with a warm smile. "I said, if you translated that sentence, you'd earn my salary." She laughed, shaking her head. "Sir, that was just a joke." He held out the check. "So was my arrogance." The amount written was staggering, a full year's CEO salary. Amara gasped. I can't accept this." "You can," he insisted gently. "Because this isn't about money, it's about legacy. Your mother taught me compassion. You taught me humility. Consider it my way of keeping her promise alive." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. But the truth is, the only thing I ever wanted was a chance, not a check." He smiled. "Then how about a job offer instead?" Amara blinked. "Job offer?" Ethan nodded. "I'm creating a new department, global inclusion and language relations. I want you to lead it, she repeated, stunned. "You've proven you can bridge worlds, Amara. You don't just speak languages, you connect people. And that's what this company needs." For a long moment, Amara just stood there, overwhelmed. The girl who once scrubbed his floors was now being asked to shape his company's future. She smiled through her tears. "I'll do my best, sir." "I know you will," he said softly. "Your mother would be proud." That evening, as Amara left the building, the city skyline reflected in the glass doors. She stopped for a moment, looking up at the towering letters of Cole Enterprises glowing against the twilight. A single tear rolled down her cheek, not of sadness, but of gratitude. From maid to leader, from invisible to unforgettable, she had proven that dignity and intelligence shine brighter than wealth or status. And somewhere in his penthouse office, Ethan Cole looked out over the same skyline, whispering into the quiet night, "Thank you, Lillian. Your daughter just reminded me who I was always meant to be."